Hello, friends. Hello, friends. A tradition unlike any other.
Oh, my goodness. In your life, have you seen anything like that?
There it is! Adam Scott, a life changer. Mashed potato!
Here it comes.
This is the 19th Tee podcast. Kieran Marsh and Nathan Drudy back with you. Drewster, as I said previously in the past, in the infamous words of Blink-182, a day late, a buck short, here on the 19th Tee once again. K Marsh on assignment in professional speak in a different part of the country. So I've had to delay a night. I apologise to our loyal listeners and to you. You were very patient with me last night as I buggered you around no end, but always good to have your company in the week of a major.
Yeah, what a thrill. Major week, second major week of the year. I'm excited. There's a lot going on in the world of golf. And I'm looking forward to this one for some reason, because the PGA Championship doesn't normally tickle my fancy, but I am looking forward to this one out at Southern Hills.
We've got a nice little hybrid episode, I would say, for the listeners this evening. Given we are a day later into the week, we usually would do a standalone preview show, but we're going to merge the entities together. So a little bit of news here at the top before we get into our official preview of the PGA Championship from Southern Hills in Oklahoma. First and foremost, Drudes, Minjee Lee gets the job done, her seventh LPGA Tour title of her career. I think comfortably now the best Australian player in the world at present. And you'll recall that it wasn't all that long ago that I was saying that Jin Young Ko might be the best player in the world, full stop, and given her run of form. Well, Minjee Lee's body of work in the past probably 3 months on the LPGA is without peer and is finally being rewarded with another tour title.
Yeah, she's been exceptional, and all of that, and the putter's not really playing nicely either. So yes, a really, really good performance from her. Obviously, that second round, 9 under 63, really setting things up. Got a little tight towards the end there, but as you alluded to, she's been uber consistent for quite some time. Like looking back to her results to the HSBC, the World Championship, where she finished T2 at the start of March. Her worst finish after that has been T23, and in that time she's recorded 3 more top 15s and another 2 top 5s. So she's been doing a hell of a lot of work, and the game seems to be in a really good place, which is exciting coming into major SZN, as the kids say, for the ladies in a couple of weeks' time with the US Women's Open.
I'm reticent to throw this out there without the adequate research, but we do like to take risks on this podcast. So prepared to say that now up to a career high, 4th in the women's golf world rankings. I'm not sure that Minjee's been higher than 4th in the world.
Yeah, I think you're right. I reckon you'd probably safely say. Just say it with confidence, and people will believe it.
I think so. So you look at the names above her. Jin Young Ko currently ranked 1st in the world. Nelly Korda, of course, has had a spell with that blood clot issue for a few months now. 2nd, Lydia Ko in 3rd, her resurgent form over the past 12 months, and Minjee Lee. So in terms of the people behind her, Ataya Titikul, Nasa Hatsuoka, Lexi Thompson, who she beat out there at the Founders, Kim Hyo-ju, Inbee Park, Se Young Kim, Danielle Kang, Brooke Henderson, Patty Totanic, Jessica Korda, Yuka Sasso, Jennifer Kupcho. Like, this is the Rolls Royce of the women's game that she's leaving in her wake at present. And I think, as I said, I've been comfortably the form player of the LPGA in the past 3 to 4 months, and comfortably at present the best Australian player playing golf in the world. I think it's fantastic. I mean, it wasn't all that long ago. We were discussing the question of who'll be the next Australian to win a major. And I said her. Now, Smithy was the other obvious choice, and he came obviously incredibly close at Augusta National recently, but she's in outrageous form at the moment. And it's just so cool to watch, to see her do well. Obviously, Hannah Green's had a lot of the headlines in recent years as a major winner, and deservedly so. But I think week in, week out, from a consistency perspective, she's doing some things we haven't necessarily seen from an Australian in some time.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, the putter's still been a little bit of an issue for her, and I think we got a glimpse of how good she can be when that second round, starting the day at 5 under par and moves to 14 under by the end, if you don't mind, including just the one bogey across that second round. She only had 23 putts in that second round, and conversely hit 12 of 18 greens. So the putter was really rolling, and I think that shows that she's got such a massive ceiling ahead of her. So in the other rounds, 30 putts in the first round, 28 and 29 in rounds 3 and 4 respectively. So yeah, I think that if she just tidies that putter up, gets a little bit more consistent, she's going to be a real force to be reckoned with at the moment, Minjee. And as I say, coming into, we've got the US Open in a couple of weeks, and then the Women's PGA at the back end of June. So yeah, she's hitting form at the right time.
You mentioned the Women's US Open. I want to touch on that in a second because it is relevant from an Australian perspective, news-wise. But that is played, I think, June 2 to 6 at Pine Needles, which I am immensely
Southern
looking
Pines.
forward. Is it Southern Pines?
Pines, yeah.
Definitely Southern Pines. I thought it was Pine Needles.
So, wow, it's in Southern Pines.
It's got pines in there.
Yeah, it's got pines in there.
So
it is Pine Needles in Southern Pines.
there you go. Pine Needles.
We're both right. That's rare.
Very often both wrong. I'm thoroughly looking forward to seeing that because that's a phenomenal course, and I think we've spoken about it previously. But the quality of the courses, I think that the women's game is starting to play on is making a huge difference. I mean, I know that we didn't watch a whole lot of golf over the weekend, you and I, for differing reasons. But what I did catch of Minjee's win on an AW Tillinghast course, that course was an awesome watch. And I think that makes it so much more engaging, comparatively to what we saw, in Dallas over on the PGA Tour. The questions that were asked, incredibly narrow course there that Tillinghast, in typical Tillinghast fashion, that for me made an engaging watch as well. For that reason, I'm really looking forward to watching them go to Pine Needles because we've seen it before. We said it Kiowa last year for the men's PGA. Great courses produce great outcomes and great results and great viewing. And the more of it, the better.
Yeah, agreed. Certainly agreed.
Just on the Women's US Open as well, I mentioned from Australian perspective, a couple of invitations received for the next generation, so to speak. Good friend of this podcast, Grace Kim, has secured an invite to the Women's US Open, which is awesome for her. I mean, I think we both wholeheartedly agree she's got the world at her feet, really. I think she showed that across the Australian Summer. She's one of the probably top 4 or 5 consistent performers across the WPGA Tour here across the Australian Summer. And then Gabby Ruffles, of course, plays out of USC there in California in the college game, and she's also secured an invite to the US Open. So we'll have a number of representatives there at the Women's US Open, but awesome to see that next wave coming through from an Australian perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to the non-American dominance continuing at the Women's US Open as well. Just looking back through the winners, there's only been 3 American winners since 2010, so I'm loving that. So
briefly, before we get to the preview of the PGA Championship, over on the PGA Tour, I mentioned the event, the 18th Byron Nelson, TPC Craig Ranch, came with some criticism, primarily because we had a winner at, was it 25 or 26 under?
26. In
KH Lee, a defending champion. I think I'm going to miss one of these names, but becomes only the 4th player to successfully defend the AT&T Byron Nelson alongside, I think it was Sam Snead, Jack Nicklaus, and I want to say Arnold Palmer. A fair list of names for KHC to be the 4th. Fast becoming my favourite Korean player on tour. And I've got a few because I really enjoy, Benny Ahn, Sung Jae Im, Siwoo Kim, but KH Lee has really captured my imagination, I think, in recent months, Drew.
Yeah, he has. I think it's unfortunate for KH Lee in this because I think there's so many other stories that came out of this event as well. Obviously there was the whole Sergio thing that kind of took headlines at the start of the week. Spieth, finishing 1 shot back. Matsuyama flew home. Xander finished with a 61. There was just so much happening across the course of 4 days. Scotty Scheffler, he officially now passes away and finishes T15, and his run comes to an end, and he's back to back to the peasants like the rest of us. But
Regresses back to the field. Yeah.
yeah, it's there was so much to kind of comprehend from it. And I must admit, I didn't catch a whole deal of it. And, to be honest, it's when I see scores after the first day of jumping out and we're already at 7, 8, 9 under par, like I don't know, it doesn't really tickle my fancy, to be honest. I know that's a very cliched bit that everyone seems to talk about, but yeah, having a winner at 26 under isn't particularly exciting.
Well, I mean, you've rattled off a few names there. There's a couple missing. El Jefe, Sebastian Munoz, who I think finished T3 in the end. He's at a 60 on day one to be a comfortable leader and setting a new course record. You mentioned Hideki and Xander. I think Hideki was a 62 on Sunday. Xander was a 61, and our winner KH Lee ended up having a 63 on Sunday. So the players were eating up TPC Craig Ranch comfortably. But yeah, KH Lee, I don't think he's going to trouble the scorers at a major anytime soon. But he's putting together a good little run here on the PGA Tour, fairly consistent. And yeah, I mean, outside of probably Sungjae, who unfortunately will miss the PGA Championship this week after contracting COVID, really cruelly, I think, going home to support an event on the Korean Tour and unfortunately contracts COVID, rules him out of a major. But outside of Sungjae, I think KH Lee is probably the best South Korean male player now. I think he's probably comfortably above Benny Arn and Siwoo Kim's gone a little bit off the boil. So good little run here for KH Lee. He's really engaging character as well. I think he's great. I don't know if you've seen the quote. He wants to become the sexiest golfer in the world.
Yeah, really.
I just love, because it's aspirational at best, and that's what we love about it.
Yeah, no, he is. He is quite funny. I thought that I read something. I'm just trying to go through his profile here. You know how they always, special interests, singing karaoke. I think we've brought this up before. Like, if he wasn't a professional golfer, he'd be a singer. I don't know. His favorite motto is a Rolling Stone gathers no moss. Bucket list item is a tour around the world and riding a motorcycle. I don't know if that's, tour around the world riding a motorcycle or if they're separate, because, one's a bit easier to do than the other. So yeah, anyway, he's an interesting dude.
He's a good cat. I don't think we need to spend too much time more on the ATT Byron Nelson.
No, we'll cover some of these players in our preview, I suggest.
We will. So probably just as a segue to our preview of the PGA Championship. Obviously, news through during the week, the defending champion Phil Mickelson will not be there. He will not be at Southern Hills. Really interesting that the news, in my mind, interesting anyway, that the news was released by the PGA, similar to kind of what it was with Augusta National when Phil had made that announcement via the club. Different in the sense that he's a defending champion, right? And this is odd. And I think, certainly not the first to say it, I think it's been said ad nauseum, probably in the 4 or 5 days since. It is remarkable, I think, to juxtapose him winning this tournament in the fashion that he did, to an extent that I and others called it potentially the greatest ever win in golf in the circumstances. To juxtapose that to 12 months later where he finds himself in the game is an incredible fall from grace. And obviously Tiger ran himself off a few steep cliffs previously, but I don't know, this feels different. It's now got to a point where you wonder, I think, given the complementary, almost at the same time, the level of trajectory at which LIV Golf is moving now, you do genuinely wonder if Phil has played his last event on the PGA Tour.
Well, quite possibly, right? Yeah, look, it was interesting that it came out from them. I mean, they're an independent contractor; they can do whatever they like, Kieran, as you know. No, look, it was. I don't know. I am just fascinated that Phil hasn't said anything since Shipnuck's piece came out. Right, he's gone to ground for a month, maybe a little bit more, 6 weeks probably, and we haven't heard anything from him. Now, we will hear something from him at the first LIV Golf event where he will be playing. He's applied for the release, and I think he's going to play regardless. So, we're absolutely going to hear some comments from him there. It's not going to be particularly. I think there are going to be some questions asked, and we're not going to get many answers, right? So, yeah, I don't know. It's all a bit odd, but I think the collective has now kind of moved to see that what Phil has done is probably irreparable. And I think a lot of people are starting to come around on that. Whereas prior, I think a lot of people were like, oh, well, maybe we've got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Now I think a lot of people have kind of been like, run your last race here, Phil.
Most likely, I would have thought. It's just, I don't know. It's such a shame. You know, I feel like I think you can feel as though what he did was incredibly poor, whilst at the same time be disappointed if this is the outcome. Truly, he'll never play again because, there's been worse. There's definitely been worse, and people have come back from worse. And I don't know. I think just listening to a few bits, really interesting interview with Alan Shipnuck on the No Laying Up podcast, and him kind of previewing his book, which is out now. And there's just so many different sides to the guy. Invariably, people will have a pretty binary opinion of him as an individual. There doesn't seem to be much grey area, but it's odd the way that it is all kind of, I think, particularly progressed in the last 3 months. You know, there was, to your point, it's become irreparable in a really quick space of time. So, yeah, I think ultimately where I sit is it's a shame that he won't be there because I can separate what's happened from what that was last year, and I still am amazed by that 4 days at Kiowa. But, yeah, I'm not sure that we'll ever see him swing a club again on the PGA Tour, and that seems strange for, of our generation, the second best player and probably of all generations, one of the greats we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's unsurprising that, I don't know. Look, it's unsurprising in a sense that he's not playing because this is the Tour's major, right? So, like, if he's upping roots and everything that was alleged in the sense that he went off and helped craft bylaws, etc., which is so, it's against every rule in the book, it's not unsurprising that Phil is not playing. It's not unsurprising to me. It wouldn't be unsurprising to me if the Tour, in fact, told him that he wasn't allowed to play. I know that's what their statement, their statement didn't say that. But yeah, I think it's also interesting to me that, like, we have been talking about this SGL and Premier Golf League for some 18 months, probably, I think. And along the way, I think we both have gone through ebbs and flows of like, this has got some real traction. Nah, it's a load of shit. It's not going to go anywhere. And might take off a little bit. They just need a name. In the last 3 or 4 months, clearly stuff has happened. They're now running a series of events. They've got a number of players who are committed. They've got infrastructure bumped in England. This is happening. This is the change that's happening in golf. And regardless of whether we like it or not, it is happening. And there are players that are going to go and play on it. One of them is going to be Phil Mickelson. And that absolutely sucks because I want to continue watching the PGA Tour, and I would have liked to have watched Phil do it. I would have loved to watch him on the Champions Tour, and I'm not going to get to see that. Do I really ultimately want to support something that's backed by the Saudis? No, personally, I don't. Some people don't really give a shit. Like Scott Hend on Twitter. I don't know if you follow Scott Hend on Twitter.
I did for a period, and I can't really anymore.
As long as I'm a co-host of this show, I'm sorry that Scott won't have a place on this show. Some of the things that Scott has been talking about is quite baffling. But if players want to go over and play, we were talking to Jed last week. It makes financial sense for him to do it. Someone like Phil, who's won nearly $100 million on the PGA Tour, to then up and go, nah, we're good. I'm going to go and take this money. Like, there's no need for you to go and earn money, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I to my previous point about the conversation with Alan Shipnuck, I don't know that we have a true sense of how much in the hole he is from his gambling.
This is true.
And I think that's really revealing. But
Yeah.
this is always the conversation around guys like Phil and Sergio and Poulter and Bubba. And, like, why are they doing it? They don't need it. Well, maybe Phil does. Maybe Phil's led quite an extravagant life on the craps tables in Las Vegas, and sports betting on the NFL and things like that. And yeah, maybe he owes some money to some people that this could come in quite handy. But yeah, look, I think it's really interesting. Obviously, it's progressed significantly in the last 10 days in the sense that the PGA Tour have officially denied the request for a release.
Yeah.
Of
all players, not just a Phil.
Of all players, that's correct. So this, for me, it becomes a standoff now. So, I think Phil goes because Phil clearly is not playing anywhere else. I think Sergio is obviously on his way out.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question Sergio's going.
Yeah.
I do wonder whether Lee Westwood, it seems as though will go. I wonder if Poulter will go. I get the sense he probably will. For mine, it's not really even Bubba. It's not that wave, right? For me, I think it's fascinating now, given the PGA Tour has drawn a line in the sand to the extent that they've barred like college and amateur players from going over and playing it. You will not be granted a card. You are denied, the opportunity, which I find maybe they've over-indexed there because 90% of those guys aren't getting onto the PGA Tour. But you're now curtailing their opportunity and ability to earn. For me, it's that next generation, right? It's Bryson, it's Xander, it's the other guys that were rumoured like Abe Ancer, Harold Varner, Joaquin Neiman. It's those guys who, were all in that kind of long list of names that were rumoured. Do they get any of them? Because if they can't play on the PGA Tour, they've got a lot of their career left. This is a big commitment. It's guys like Jed, who was really open and honest with us last week. But this changes things. If Jed goes and plays in that, and that denies him an opportunity to go and play on the PGA Tour, is it worth it? Right? So that for me will be the tipping point: is can they get any of that next generation? Because without it becomes a bridging league to the Champions Tour, really, given the caliber of player. So I think
they wouldn't even be able to play on the Champions Tour because that's still
PGA. Yeah. So I think the next couple of weeks will be fascinating to see who actually follows through.
Well, it's a good point, and the college thing is really interesting, and I do want to try and reach out to a guy named Matt Brown. We're raising this in episode as we like to. Matt Brown runs a newsletter called Extra Points over in America, and he works with the it's basically the business side of college athletics. So obviously with the NIL coming into NCAA sport, which people don't know, college athletes can now take endorsement deals. So the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia can go to a college player and offer to sponsor them. And if that player accepts, then they will be barred from a PGA Tour card or coming through PGA Tour U as well. So 5 players getting rights onto the Corn Ferry Tour out of college. So there's a lot of like little intricacies in that space. I was just thinking, like, if Joaquin Neiman goes and plays over, and it's interesting because Joaquin Neiman is one of my picks for this week as well. If Joaquin Neiman goes and plays Live, I don't think it changes anything in terms of the tour, the PGA Tour, right? Like in my head, there are a cluster of players, and I haven't quite worked out exactly who they are. A cluster of players who sit up in the top echelon that if they got them, we'd go, shit, this is not great. Then there's players in the middle who are kind of like, not ideal, which is where I think Neiman fits. And then there are players over here who we just do not give a fuck about. Robert Garrigus, right? Who was like, wanted, like, I don't even know who he was, right? So the one I did see today, and I don't know how much this has done the rounds, but Ricky Fowler, I don't know if you saw Ricky's quote where he said that he hasn't made his mind up. Now, if Ricky goes, a guy who has been so average for a long time, I still think I would put him in this tier 1 category of players who genuinely shift the needle of golf, for use of a saturated term. The tour has put so much effort and time and money into marketing Ricky. It would be one of the great kicking the balls if he left. I don't think he's genuinely going to follow through with it, but yeah, for him to be considering it, I think is enough that the tour need to sit up and take responsibility, not take responsibility, take a bit of ownership of some of these plans moving forward.
Well, I mean, I think for me, what absolutely must happen now is they must explore an alternative, whether that's the PGL, whether that's, give the players the fall off and they look at doing something on their own. Like, they have to explore an alternative, because they cannot simply, I don't think it is the PGL, because, quite a desperate letter sent from the PGL founders to the playing group in the last 2 weeks, which is, they've made so many smart moves up until this point. That letter was not one of them.
Yeah, right.
It reeked of desperation. And we've spoken about the strong position they found themselves in by virtue of standing by and doing nothing recently. The tour cannot afford to maintain the status quo now. I think that's abundantly clear. So it's okay to, the SGL is black booked. It's not okay in their eyes, and that's all right if they've come to that decision. But it's not okay in my mind to do that and then just continue on business as usual, because disruption is coming, and it will get to a point where ultimately it will come from a place that is more palatable than the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and that will be hard and increasingly difficult for the players to ignore.
I was going to pose you that question. Do you think this is all because of where the funds are coming from? Like people's issue, and I guess our issue that we have with it is that it's backed by Saudi money, right? Like it's sports washing. Like, is that as simple as it is? Like, I think there's two trains of thought to it. I think there's one is that's probably where my mind is. Like, I don't love that this is where it's coming from. Don't get me wrong. But like the PGL, very here for it. And I've said that for quite some time. And that's my opinion. There are other people who don't tend to give a shit. Greg Norman's one of them. But I think I genuinely think the tour isn't differentiating anything. They are seeing a competitive model coming in and going, shit, like players are potentially wanting to jump ship and go and play in another league that is far more palatable in terms of money, in terms of schedule, in terms of travel, all of this sort of stuff that is weighing up. And they're going, maybe we're not. Like, we're not the new toy that everyone wants to play with. There's a new shiny car in town and everyone wants to drive it, and that's the SGL.
I think ultimately, in the tour's mind, everything is an existential threat that isn't the tour, and they don't differentiate between the parties. I don't know that they see anyone clearly outside of the European tour as a party worth coming to the table and having a conversation with. The move, I think, the further we get away from it, the clearer it's become. The move to strike a partnership with the European Tour was a land grab, right? It was
absolutely
strengthening the position more than anything else. But yeah, I think entirely from a playing perspective, you look at the guys who, from almost the outset, have said no: Rory, Spieth, Thomas, Rahm. They're all guys who they value things over and above the greenback, right? Their reputation, their brand, their connection to the game in its purest sense. Are there commonalities between those players? You've looked at comments from Robert McIntyre recently, and he's like, I love this game. It's provided me with so much so far in my life. I've got a healthy family. We live comfortably. Like, what more do I truly need? It's not just about money.
Yeah.
And I think that spoke volumes to the stance of a lot of players who've been firm in their opposition to this model. As I say, though, like, if that money comes from a more palatable source, it's difficult to ignore, because you can't separate even an oversimplified like grossly oversimplified level, people will just say you're getting into bed with the Saudis, which it's hard. That's hard to argue. There's nuance, of course, and Greg was saying during the week he doesn't answer to MBS. He answers to his board. Funnily enough, I think his board answers to MBS. So ultimately, he probably does. Maybe not directly, but everyone answers to MBS in the kingdom. So it's difficult if you join this league not to be tarred with the brush that you're getting in bed with, a horrific regime. So, yeah, I truly hope that it's not simply a closed door to anyone other than us in the European Tour. I think they've got to start having a conversation with some people to understand how they can shift the model, because if they continue to just oppose, rather than dilute or weaken, I think you'll only strengthen the resolve of people on the outside to drive change. I don't think you'll deter them in any way, shape or form.
No, of course. Jay Monahan's in DC, I believe, as we speak.
The lawmakers.
Lobbying senators. And
rubbing shoulders with the sphere of influence.
I don't know what the play is there. What's he going, you think, and saying, like, if you want your stop on the tour, then you've got to support us? Like, I couldn't work out what law he was trying to
what pass. Are we writing a bill in Congress, Jay? What's going on?
Well, this is the thing, right? And like, golf is setting a precedent because, at the fundamental level, right, those players are independent contractors, right? Like, we can't ignore that. At the fundamental level, they have an agreement with the PGA Tour, as they all do. But this is so. I was trying to think of an analogy before, like, it's like an NBA player, it's like a Lakers player picking up and going and playing in China. Well, no, because they report to the team and the club, who report to the league. I can't think of anything else in years gone by, whether it's tennis, in the World Tennis Tour. Like, I can't think of anything off the top of my head where this has happened before. So there is no precedent in any of this for the tour to even lean on. So it's going to be a very interesting watch. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that none of this is just a coincidence that all of this information is coming out in the week of the tour's major championship. This has been very well orchestrated from whoever's behind the SGL, Greg and co. So.
Well, I mean, you recall they were on the island of Kiowa 12 months ago.
Yeah.
They were really making their moves and moving the chess pieces 12 months ago, and it's really come to fruition probably in the last 3 months particularly, but we're a year on from when they first really lobbed at a place where they all were and started to make some moves. So I think we do need to touch on Gregory briefly. I mean, spoke earlier, but has there been a bigger fall from grace than Phil? Greg continues to boggle the mind. When asked a question directly in an interview recently about the ordered killing and dismemberment of Saudi Arabian journalist Jamal Khashoggi, he said, "We all make mistakes." I think. Now, I am paraphrasing, but that was essentially what he said. We all make mistakes. Yeah. So state-sanctioned killing of a journalist is a mistake. That's good. Yeah. Really, really, really good stuff from Greg. I think I didn't see anything more telling. And I might actually, because I want to get it right, I might get your thoughts on that, because there was a tweet that I thought really summed up, I suppose, particularly an Australian response to someone like Greg making those comments. And I just want to read it verbatim so I don't muck it up. So your thoughts on Greg's latest gaffe?
Oh, it's not unsurprising. I think, when things are as horrific as they are, and, when you've clearly not got Greg talking sense, things are going to be said that are just going to continue to spiral out of control. And that's where Greg is right now. Like, great hire from Live Golf Investments. Great hire, because they couldn't have picked anyone more maligned with the tour than Greg Norman. But yeah, it's just like take golf out of everything for a moment. Like those comments are, as a person, are just horrific.
Tone deaf, completely tone deaf.
Like I don't know how that you can categorize that and go, oh no, it was just we all make mistakes. And then he said something about they mass murdered 81 people earlier this year, and he made another very poor comment around that. His response to that about, oh, I don't even know if I have any gay friends, like just stuff that is just not even as a as a businessman or a golf player or anything, just as a person are just shit. They're just shit. Have you got that tweet?
I do. So it's from Kari Webb.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Not sure if you saw this, but so she quote tweeted a Golf Digest tweet. The Golf Digest tweet was, Greg Norman brushed off Saudi Arabia's human rights atrocities in his press conference on Wednesday, linking away to a story. Kari Webb's quote tweeted and said, the little girl in me just died well and truly. Has anyone's childhood hero disappointed them as much as I am now? Question mark, with a couple of choice emojis. So we're talking about comfortably the greatest Australian golfer of all time. Neatly articulating, I think, how the rest of us feel about Greg at the moment. He is doing himself, and more importantly, I think our country, a great disservice internationally at the moment. Not sure if you want to read Wayne Grady's.
I do have it here. It is pretty long, but
for the people who might have missed it, Wayne Grady, obviously a great Australian golfer in his own right, had some choice words about Greg off the back of this. I thought found it quite entertaining, Drews.
Yes, essentially, I'll paraphrase this because it is a bit lengthy, but he just basically calls him selfish and says that he's only about his own, and he's been trying to take the tour down for 30 years. Basically echoed Kari's sentiment, saying that his admiration was gone, and essentially it was summed up at the end. You should hang your head in shame, Shark. I went to Jack Newton's memorial service yesterday and was surrounded by true professional golfers who believe in loyalty and history. Go fuck yourself, Shark. So yeah, it's look, it's certainly struck a chord with a lot of people who perhaps have really sided with Greg over the years and thought of him as an idol. I don't know where to go from here, but maybe we just get into our preview, because I don't know how much more we can go around on the merry-go-round on this.
I think that's a good idea. You can see Grady's full statement. I think we've posted it to our social channels. It's worth a read, I think. Yeah. If nothing else, than to see some pretty abrupt thoughts. A lot of people have come for Greg in a big way, but deservedly so with his comments. Drewster, on to the 2022 PGA Championship from the Southern Hills Country Club in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Gil Hance designed course. We'll ask some questions, I think, this week. I'm really excited. Narrow, I think, in parts, which will premium on driving accuracy, not necessarily length will be important. It increasingly is in the game of men's golf in particular, but a premium on driving accuracy, I believe, this week would be fair to say.
Yeah, I think, certainly in parts, there are some really interesting driving holes where it is going to require accuracy. A lot of width in places too. Looking here back on the on Google Maps, which I've been doing a bit of research on Southern Hills in terms of in relation to the weather and how the course is going to play. So we'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, looking hole number 9 is obviously going to be quite interesting in terms of driving. There is some width. There's some width that people can play with, but I think that's going to then perhaps increase that ability to make a good second shot if you're not in the right areas. The biggest thing for me this week is short game, and that's where you'll find a lot of my tips have gone based off people in the short game realm. So that is my context for my tips this week.
As we always do, we've got to look at the forecast.
We do. I certainly do.
Should people be concerned about the weather? Because I think it would be fair to say, irrespective of where we go with this, it will be a different spectacle than what Kiwi was last year.
Absolutely. Yes. Very, very different. So, look, currently, Tulsa is on red alert for a significant thunderstorm that is passing through Tulsa in Oklahoma. Of course, famously in Tornado Alley. I don't know if we're going to get any tornadoes this week, but they are on red alert for a thunderstorm. Absolutely pissing down at the moment. Balmy temperatures. So probably a bit of Queensland weather around there. KM mid 30s, and this is all Celsius, mid 30s, and pissing down with rain. So Thursday we're looking pretty good in terms of rain. Friday afternoon is where we're going to get a bit of rain, and then Saturday and Sunday not looking too bad. But the biggest challenge this week for players is going to be the wind. So on Thursday and Friday, we're expecting winds of between 25 and 30 kilometers an hour throughout the day. So this is going to be quite a significant challenge. They're going to be coming out of the south. And the reason that I say that is because a lot of the holes at Southern Hills play north to south. There are only a handful that really run left to right or right to left, whichever way you look at the map. So some holes on those first 2 days are going to play quite short and some are going to play really quite long. On the weekend, that sort of swings around and comes in from the northeast. So the strength of wind will certainly be there, but its impact on some of the holes might be a little bit less. It might make for a little bit more entertainment in terms of shot shaping and having to make the shot, I guess. So, yeah, the weather, I think this is potentially going to be one of the more interesting weeks in terms of my weather report because, it could have a real impact just based off how the course is routed out.
I think, you mentioned, it's interesting, right, that probably ranks lowly on your list of four majors. For me, I don't know. I don't know if it's recency bias. Last year's tournament was so good, not just obviously the outcome, but I think the course Kiwi, I loved everything about the 4 days of Kiwi. I think I'm prepared to say it's probably jumped above the US Open for mine. And I also like the field. I think the collection of players for a PGA Championship is fascinating. I love the element of the club pros. That to me is just the best. I always love that part of this tournament and the fascinating stories. You guarantee there'll be one who bobs their head on the first day. They might, hit 4 or 5 under, and that'll be the story for 24 hours. That's the news cycle. Will be the club pros, the head club pro. But this tournament, I don't know. I think definitely for mine, grown a little bit in stature in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's still fourth for me. The US Open setup of rough, long rough and all that sort of shit, and the usual crappy videos that we see of balls, dropping balls in and disappearing. I don't know. I don't love all of that, but I kind of like the US Open national major. So.
Yeah, I'm probably going to say this right up until we go to Brookline. US Open. I'm going to be back US Open again. So does tend to go to some great courses. Before we get to tips, Australians in the field this week. And I probably should have done my comprehensive research prior, because looking at the field, they only list them. There should always be an option in my mind to filter via country when you're looking at the field. It's not possible via the PGA Championship website. So scrolling through alphabetically, which is great, Cam Davis and Jason Day, the first two that I go across. Lucas Herbert is in the field. Mark Leishman is in the field. Minwoo Lee is in the field, which is excellent. I haven't got down to S, but I'm assuming Adam Scott is in the field. As I make my way down, this is really good stuff, true stuff. As is Cameron Smith, and I think that may be it for the Aussies in the field here by the looks of it.
Excellent work. I'm just
Thank
trying
you.
to see if I can find any more. No.
That's some really, really good stuff. Good radio. That one name I did want to mention before we get to our tips. John Daly's playing this week, which is amazing. JD, Big Long John. So enjoy that, folks, for the first 2 days. That'll be a theatre in and of itself. Always great to see Long John back with the Santa Claus beard these days.
Yes.
You look like you're looking at something. What have we?
I'm scrolling to see if you've missed any Aussies, but I can't see it. So I'm just going to back you in. You're generally right with that.
Well, I say this with the greatest amount of respect to Cam Davis. I can't think of anyone lower than kind of that.
I don't think so.
Cam Davis, Lucas Abbott, Nimue Lee tier that would be playing.
No, I think you're right.
So, I mean, obviously for the next two, that's what Jed gets his exemption into, in terms of the Open Championship and US Open, but not for this. So, yeah, I think that is the field of Aussies. We do our tips as we usually do. So for people unfamiliar, which I'm sure there's not many of you by now, each major we like to give 4 tips. Will win, won't win, want to win, and we try to find a little bit of value for the listeners, a bit of a roughie. So, Drewster, I think as we tend to do, let's lead with won't. Who's not going to win the tournament?
Victor Hovland. Simple reason
Wow,
is...
I didn't.
So he's playing 26s, which is
Short
in
game.
the top half of the thing. Yeah, short game this week required. Going to be very, very important. Look, with the wind being what it is, yeah, I just think there's going to be a lot of greens missed, a lot of greens, or the greens will become quite firm with the wind. They'll harden up, which means balls aren't going to hold on greens. There's going to be a lot of chips, short chips, long sort of pitch shots that are going to be required, and that is not Victor Hovland's strength. So that's where I'm going with it, even though he's a fantastic driver of the ball.
I think he telegraphs around short games. Victor's not great with the wedges in hand, to be fair.
This is true. Who have you gone?
This is either the easiest or the stupidest pick for this particular category that's ever been made on this podcast. And just based on numbers, we'd be into maybe our probably 14th or 15th major so far we've been doing this. And this might be, as I said, the easiest or the dumbest. Scotty Scheffler won't win the PGA Championship. I acknowledge in saying that he's currently still the best golfer in the world. He won the last major in the end reasonably comfortably, and not just the best player in the world on the often manipulated rankings. Quite clearly, the best player in the world at the moment. So I base this on nothing other than at some point he must regress. I just don't know that he can go out and win back-to-back majors. That is reserved for the most elite in the game. And I say this with the greatest amount of respect for a player that I love. I love him. I just don't know that he's in the rarefied air of back-to-back majors, or even more than one major in a year. So I'm not telegraphing my won't win for the next two, but I just don't know that he gets the job done at Southern Hills, because the cynic in me just suggests it has to run out at some stage.
Take all of that. He's my want to win. I've decided I want him to win all 4 career Grand Slam 2022.
Yeah.
So he's my want to win. And
for all the reasons I've just said, they are your same reasons for wanting to win.
Yeah, probably will be my want to win for the next 2 as well. So
I think
that's mine. Who do you want to win?
This surprised a few people, because this is a standard entry generally for me on Spieth Island, but I've gone a little different, not markedly different, because I think it pulls at the heartstrings for the same fashion. I'd love to see Rory win the tournament. Obviously, he's done it before. This is not the one he's chasing. But there's enough signs for me to say that he's certainly within reach. None more so than that Sunday at Augusta. Saw an interesting stat from Kyle Porter during the week, obviously a favourite of this podcast. He compared the strokes gained in the final round of Rory this year at Augusta comparatively to Tiger in his win in 2019. And I think it was something along the lines of 1.91 for Rory, and I think 1.6 for Tiger in 2019. Sorry, I've got it wrong. It was not in the final round. It was strokes gained across the week. So Rory at the 2022 Masters 14.4, Tiger at the 2019 Masters 12.1. So essentially, he was saying we truly are playing a game of inches here, and
Yes.
and I think that he's in enough form now that it will be a disappointment if he doesn't at least factor. And I don't know, we talked about it in the aftermath of the Masters. That was really special, that back nine, that run that he went on, and obviously didn't win the tournament. The reaction to him holding out from the bunker on 18 was, we haven't seen that, probably since Spieth went on that kind of Saturday run at the Waste Management. There's a handful of players that do it. We've said it ad nauseum, and he's one of them. And I think for that reason, a run at Southern Hills for Rory this weekend, it'd be something to behold.
Yeah, I think the other thing with Rory is he's been far more consistent in majors in the last couple of years than
Sure.
Spieth, Thomas, guys that we laud, right? Like, we say how good they are in majors, but we kind of fucking Rory only finished top 5 again. Like, he didn't win it, So, very, very popular winner if it was to happen. Who do you want to win?
We just did that. That was
Oh,
Rory.
no. Who will win?
So you talked about Grand Slams, big fella. I don't think we'll see a calendar Grand Slam, but we are going to see a career Grand Slam.
Sure.
Jordan Spieth is going to win the tournament this week.
Yeah.
And do you know why I say that? Because I rewind about 13 and a half months when he did the exact thing I didn't want him to do, and that was win the Houston Open the week before Augusta National. And I said, he's gone a week early. He cannot possibly back up here. Lo and behold, he still had a reasonable tournament, but didn't get the job done. I couldn't have asked him to place better than what he placed in Dallas. 2 shots behind KH Lee, finished strongly, gave himself a sniff, and didn't get across the line. And it's perfect. I would have much rather he finished 2 shots off in second than finish 10, because I think it's exactly the trajectory that I wanted from the Houston Open 13 and a half months ago, the week before the Masters. Because this, for me, gives him a sniff, and he's going in form. He's found the putter again, which remarkably was in the wilderness, probably 2 months ago. It's been the club that's kept him on the course in the past 2.5 years, and it was the one the club that's deserted him, particularly at Augusta National, disappointingly. He's found it again. This weird swing that I was highly critical of seems to be finding the fairway an awful lot more off the tee, which is critical this week. And I'm reasonably confident in saying there isn't a better short game player in the game. So we want to talk about how important chipping will be. I just think, and I fully acknowledge they're getting caught up in hysteria, as I often do with this individual, but I sat and watched the final kind of 9 holes on Monday morning before I flew out on assignment. And there was a part of me that wanted him to win. A larger part of me didn't want it for this exact reason, because he's going to go this week in Tulsa.
Okay. Look, I actually think it's a really good tip. I genuinely do, for what you just said. Short game is going to be so important. We touched on width at the top of, some of those tee shots. He's going to get away with some of them this week. The driver still concerns me. It's not I don't have confidence when he's over the tee shot like I do with a Rory or a JT. But you're right, the swing looks certainly better. I nearly picked him. I genuinely nearly picked him because I think that this is, not saying it'll never happen, but I think this is his best chance to complete the career Grand Slam. The future venues that we're going to for the PGA Championship, like I don't like Oak Hill. I don't particularly like Valhalla. Quail Hollow, I definitely don't like. Aronimink, who knows? And then we're getting into 2027 when we're at Frisco, which we have no idea. That's in Texas. It might happen. The homecoming, who knows? I just think this is probably the year, if it's going to happen for Spieth to win the career Grand Slam, then this is it. And I said it about Rory, and I'll say it again about Spieth. It would be an incredibly popular victory. I would say for both of us, but certainly more so for you, who has been the captain of the Spieth ship.
I'm just picturing now a final grouping of my want to win and my will win. I'm not sure that I'll be able to contain myself.
Pandemonium.
Monday morning Australian time. If it's those two guys going mono in the final round of the major, it would be phenomenal.
That would.
Who do you think will win the tournament?
I have gone, so just for interest, Spieth's paying 17. I have gone someone who is paying 36s, and that is Joaquin Niemann.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when just let me preface you and your answer by saying earlier when you said he's in my tips, I definitely thought I only looked for my roughie because I kind of had a feeling of a roughie was going to be 3 weeks ago. And I looked for where he was, and I think he was sitting in the 70s when I looked, and I was comfortable with that. When you said Joaquin Niemann, I just assumed it was your roughie. I didn't know he was paying 36s, and you've got him winning.
I do. Look, form has been okay. I mean, shot a measly 17 under last week, which got him T25. WD'd from the Zurich, which I don't really care about. 12th at the RBC Heritage, 35th at the Masters, not great. But obviously had that win at the Genesis earlier this year, 6th at Farmers Insurance. So I'm okay with the form. What I like about Joaquin Niemann, he is 11th for strokes gained around the green. So he's ahead of guys like Rory, Tommy Fleetwood, Louis, Patrick Cantlay, etc. He is, where were the other stats that I had? He's 25th in strokes gained off the tee, 47th approach the green, 11th, as I mentioned, around, 96th putting, not ideal. 10th in total tee to green and 18th in strokes gained total. So I don't say it again with a great level of confidence, but like the things seem to add up a little bit for Joaquin Niemann. I mean, he loved the firm and fast conditions of Royal Melbourne when he was down here, and he's going to get the same again at Southern Hills. He has a very low ball flight as well, which was something that I looked at. And keeping that ball out of the wind is going to be quite important, particularly in those first 2 days. So if someone can get out to a 3 or 4 shot lead at the cut, it could be enough for them to hold off and I guess hold off a charge from someone across the course of the weekend. So Joaquin Niemann's where I have gone for this. Obviously a little bit of an outsider at 36s, but Joaquin Niemann.
So what I like about that pick, incredibly repeatable off the tee. Like he is one of the prettiest drivers of the golf ball in the game, and it always, like, I don't know what it is, but it's like I forget, and then I watch him play and hit the ball off the tee, and it's pure. Like, honestly, you very rarely see him spray the ball either way. If he misses, it's a slight miss, right? And that's going to be so important. Putting yourself, particularly in the conditions, approach is going to be hard anyway with the wind up. Imagine approaches out of the first or second cut comparatively to the fairway. right? You're only shackling yourself unnecessarily. So that's what I like about that pick. I really like how repeatable he is off the tee. What I don't like, and one of my favourite players to watch. I really like watching him. I love the fact that he's in the international team for the President's Cup. He was my roughie at Augusta, and he really bucked his head in the opening round. And then this is the part I don't like. The arse fell out of it. The arse fell out of it on the weekend in Dallas. Like he was there for a period of time, and he has these runs of 5 or 6 holes, and the shoulders drop. And that's a little. I think that's the 10% is the ability to weather. Turn those 5 or 6 bad holes into maybe 2 or 1, and you just find a way to par a couple of holes until you get yourself back into a rhythm. I think that's the gap for me. He eliminates that out of his game, and I think he competes more often than not at a major, but he just needs things to go his way still a little bit, and doesn't necessarily love the fight when they're not. So if he has a pretty rails run of it, he'll be there, no doubt. It'll just be how he responds to a challenge, and they will invariably come, particularly with conditions.
Yeah, look, his best finish in a major is T23 at the US Open of 2021.
Well, he's certainly going to be doing better than that if he wins it, Drew. So
absolutely. So that'd be nice. Nice if he got up.
Tell you what, if he wins at 36s, I can't wait to see a roughie.
Well, well, go on, hit me with your roughie.
So I said that I had this guy picked a couple of weeks ago. Probably from the moment he won, which to be fair wasn't 3 weeks ago, it was 2. But I've been thinking about him for a while in this category, and I've always come back to has never translated form on the PGA Tour, now a 4-time winner, to form in majors. But what I see differently is the body of work around the latest win. So, as I said, 4-time winner now. The other 3, he's a defending champion, and he's won at some courses, Riv, the Genesis. They've been isolated. They seem to bob up, and then he goes through a lean patch. For me, recently, the run of Max Homa has been really, really good. He's at a career high ranking now. I think he's shown that his best is more than capable of matching it with the best in the world. And I think he's in as good a spot as he's ever been to convert at a major. I love him off the tee. I think that's really, really important for the same reasons that we said about Joaquin. The short game's not necessarily where the rest of the field is at, particularly those who we said are going to win.
It's bad.
Not even,
it's bad.
Probably not even to the level of those we said won't.
Yeah.
But the putter, I think, has been better of late. So, we talk about the importance of the short game. It's only going to be important if you're going to miss from the approach. It's really on him. I think he puts himself in a good position off the tee in a fairway to hit some greens in regulation. And then I like the putter comparatively to a lot in the field. But, no other concrete reason other than to say I think where he's at, it's time now. It's time to turn this into like a top 10, top 5 finish at a major and show that you genuinely can compete when it matters as a 4-time winner on the PGA Tour.
No, very fair and a good pick as well. I was just trying to find him. 51 is what he's paying. His best finish at a major is T40. So obviously
no form line there, zero form line.
But that's fine. That's not what this pick's about.
No. So yours is obviously paying over 100. Something outrageous.
It was 151. I genuinely think we're underestimating how big of an impact the weather is going to play this week. I think that people, I just think given the way that the course is routed, where the wind's coming out of, it's going to be challenging for a lot of players. So I've gone with a player who has grown up playing in one of the windiest countries in the world, and that's Robert McIntyre. So 151 to 1. My mate Bob, who I've been on for nearly since day one of this podcast, grew up obviously playing the Scottish Links. I just think at 151, he's way overs in terms of adjusting to the conditions. I feel like it's going to be one of those. It's certainly going to have an element of skill to it, but of course, it's going to be about adjusting to the conditions and those who can, combat the wind. So 151, I just thought was overs for Robert McIntyre.
Don't disagree. Question without notice. What's Shane Lowry paying?
He was
in the same vein of all of the things you've just said about.
Yeah, no, that's
big shot, Bob.
Absolutely. I'm having to scroll. 29.
Yeah,
that seems under. That seems under.
That's not enough. I mean, obviously for me, it's one early because he's winning the Open Championship.
This is true.
But yeah, for all those reasons, I really like. I mean, the reason I said he's going to win the Open Championship was Saturday at Augusta when it was apocalyptic at times, right? And that's what we're going to be. That's what we're looking at in Oklahoma, who are known for a brisk wind. So yeah, Shane Lowry might be there and thereabouts. And I like that. I love Robert McIntyre. I think he's great for a great many reasons, but I love watching him play. So yeah, I strongly endorse that at 150 to 1.
Matt Fitzpatrick, by the same vein, at 41s is probably not bad. And the one that I thought, look, I've absolutely shit canned him, but he put in a nice performance in previous conditions. Previously, JT at 16 seemed way unders. I don't think he's getting anywhere near it. I'm off him. Done.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. No.
If judging by the final round of the Players' Championship and the conditions across the week that were endured by all players there, Cam Smith at 21 is potential here. We haven't really mentioned any Australians in any of our picks. So just a couple of other names. And the other one that is just sneaky, just kind of hanging around, Brooks Koepka at 41. Just worries me a touch. He always gets up for this, doesn't he? Old Brooks. So.
Love the PGA. I mean, yeah, we so often forget because he was overshadowed by the headline that, he was in the final group at KOL last year.
He was.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely putting a body bag, both in the score and mentally that day. Yeah. But, yeah, he was in the final group and contending again at the PGA Championship. So don't sleep on him at 41. It seems absurd to me that him and Matt Fitzpatrick are essentially paying the same price. That's pretty stupid, to be fair. With the greatest respect to Matt Fitzpatrick, that's pretty stupid. So.
I agree.
And the fact that Brooks is paying $12 more than Shane Lowry seems absurd to me.
Yeah.
Get on, folks. 41's ridiculous for a two-time PGA Championship winner. Yeah. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Agreed. I agree.
Well,
anything else?
No. Well, actually, one name that none of us mentioned, and by none of us, I mean there's only two of us in this conversation. I just want to draw some attention and put a flag on Colin Morikawa this week. He was my 1B behind Spieth for this week, so I think it would be remiss of us so that we can lay claim to it if he does win that his name's not mentioned in this preview. Yeah, I think Colin Morikawa is a really good sniff this week.
Excellent, good call.
Any other names you want to throw out there?
Everyone. Hideki, he's in much better form and has was injured at the Masters. So look, genuine shout. I actually had my winner. Obviously now out with COVID, but Sung Jae Im, he was going to be my winner. I thought that would have been a really interesting tip for.
Fascinating.
So just FYI, he's out. So whoever wins, asterisk next to their name because something's out. Yeah. Tiger's playing. We've not mentioned this.
Yeah.
Look, ultimately, this is a much easier test of golf than what Augusta National is. So I don't think he's going to win. I don't think he's going to contend, but there's going to be a lot of love for him this week. It's worth keeping an eye out for. I think he'll probably make the cut. And, he's a wily golfer. He's a wily golfer now. He knows how to work the wind and shot shaping and all of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, look, I think he'll make the cut, but, similar circumstances to potentially what we saw at Augusta.
Only thing I'll say is what I said after the Masters, and that's every time we see him now, we should treat it as if it will be the last time we do. And not necessarily to say it will be, but if you treat it like that, you'll give it the level of reverence it deserves to see him back on a course and competing. So, soak it up. We get it for 2 days. We get it for 4. Enjoy it.
Very well put.
Excellent, mate. I think that's it. That does us. Wide-ranging one as per use. I tell you what we're in need of. It was never going to come this week, but I feel like we've got. It's maybe a Thursday pod. Maybe when we get through this, and it's maybe I think we just need a general issues.
Yes.
There's a lot going on. Maybe it is best to have next Thursday because obviously then we can give our comprehensive rapid election as well, which I'm sure people are interested in our thoughts and who leads this country. So maybe it's best placed next week. We can delve into the politics of the nation amongst other topics.
Wonderful. Well, we did try to do that a little while back. We were doing our Monday golf, and then Thursday was kind of like golf issue plus footy, etc., and it kind of went off the boil a little bit. So we'll come up with it. We'll come up with something.
Yeah, so you're right. Maybe rather than just having a once-off issues, maybe we just go back and commit to the format we said we were going to.
And then we got to slide in interviews somewhere. I don't know. It could be a bloody three time a week podcast soon because we've both got time for that.
Obvious. A good day to come as always, Drew. So we will be back early next week to wrap up the PGA Championship from Southern Hills. Enjoy the weekend.